Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads it 20-19! Oh my!
Welcome back to the Iowa State Fan Perspective, as always, brought to you by us here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Whether you guys are tuning in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever this week, I hope you guys enjoyed your victory Saturday like we did. My name is Jake. I'm joined by my co-host, my brother Justin. As always, we bring you guys Iowa State recaps. We're going to go over the Houston game a little bit, and we always dive into the week ahead. We have the Baylor Bears on Saturday night, a whiteout, new to Iowa State as far as I'm concerned. Justin, how are we doing? How'd you spend your victory Saturday last week?
Well, I had a pretty good victory Saturday yesterday. Watched approximately 13 hours of college football. So I'd call that a successful day. We were watching from Okie State, Kansas State till the end of the Arizona-Utah game and got to see a Cyclone victory in the middle of that. So, yeah, it was a pretty good day.
Yeah, I mean, 13 hours of college football straight, and then you cap it off with an Iowa State win in the night slot. Some would say I don't think it gets any better than that.
Definitely. No aim bloggers yesterday. That was probably the only bad part about it, but I mean, you can't draw it up better than that.
That's disappointing. You couldn't find any? What's the deal?
The Ankeny stores are slacking. I just need to stock up while I'm in Ames and bring them back.
Maybe they're slacking, or maybe Iowa State fans are doing their parts and selling them out. I'm hoping I'm right in that way. All right. If you guys are new to this show, we had a lot of interaction last week on our Houston preview. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every single week. What we cover here is we're going to cover the week ahead, and we're going to go back and cover the Iowa State versus Houston game briefly. Just some of our thoughts. This is the fan perspective. We're not former coaches. We're not former college football players. We just bring our honest fan opinions and try to bring the best analysis that we can. We hope to grow this as the season continues on, and it was great to see some of the Cyclone support that we got. And I'm sure we were all enjoying victory Saturday last week as well. As always, here for our Cyclone fan perspective, we're brought to you by our partners over at No Rivals Hat Brand. You can look at the left on our YouTube page there, shopnorivals.com. Use the code PTFS. That's PTFS, like Play the Fight Song. Check out and get free shipping. We've done this, I believe, Justin, we are going on week 3 of our partnership with No Rivals, where we say, if you guys give us a score prediction for the Iowa State game in the comments below, you like the video, you subscribe to us, you do all 3 of those things, and you nail the score prediction, you say Iowa State's going to win this week 34-14. And if that's the case, we will get you guys a hat over with our partners over at No Rivals. Of course, you got to use PTFS at checkout. So stay tuned for the end. We always do predictions at the end. We get to the fun stuff there, but we have to get to some brief notes. And it's really, honestly, maybe we are too late into this conversation, Justin. We should have mentioned it right. Iowa State spends the Saturday with its win over Houston 20-0, and Matt Campbell becomes the all-time winningest head coach in Iowa State history with 57 wins. I believe his overall record is 57-48. I want to say that's right, but Dan McCarney was somewhere between 56 and 82. So really an impressive feature for Matt Campbell, who got to the all-time winning record in probably 30 less games. And just in your sort of stint, Justin, I'm sure you saw the video Saturday night of him accepting the game ball, kind of seeing the thank you video from all of his players.
Pretty sure I sent it to you.
Yeah, just that brings a smile to my face. What was your first initial thoughts on, how are we here in year, what is this? I think 9 for Campbell already. No, I think I'm wrong. Is it 9?
Yes.
I'm kind of spitballing stats at this point.
2016, right?
Yeah. Okay. So going on year 9.
That would be year 8. I don't know. We're not math majors here. We're talking Cyclone football. But yeah.
Fans.
I don't know. It's hard to talk about Matt Campbell without being a super biased fan and talking from an objective standpoint. I mean, I had, for my Cyclone fandom, Coach Rhodes and Campbell are really the only 2 guys that were really the guys who were there that when I was paying attention really had an effect on me. I wasn't really old enough for the McCartney era to appreciate all that, but just growing up and just these last 8 or 9 seasons, getting into the Campbell era, I could not be more thankful that this is like the guy who's leading our team. Like, as silly as that sounds, like, just such a good dude. Like, seeing how the team is coming together this year and how his vision for how he wants his program to be ran to like finally be coming together at this point in his career through the ups and the downs that they've all gone through. Like, it's hard not to get emotional and like just be so happy for the guy and for where the program's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, his speech really said it all last night, right? We're obviously recording this on Sunday to give you guys sort of a timestamp, but he takes the game ball from Bo Freiler and says, you know, he's obviously very thankful for it, but he wouldn't be able to do it with all the coaches that have stood by his side, all the players that have been here along the way. Just sums up Matt Campbell's tenure to a T. A guy who's really, really selfless, sorry, and he's always giving it back to his players. And I think he really does have a genuine passion for this school. I will say, yes, it is year 9 for Matt Campbell. I went and fact checked that, so we were on the money there. But Iowa State also is 4-0 for the first time since the year 2000.
I'm really happy this came at this point in the season for him to get this award too. Not for like at the end of the year when things weren't going well, or like, because you could just tell, we've talked about it in the weeks prior to this, but like this team, like it's early, like things we're gonna touch on the other 5-0 teams that finished like 5 and 6 and things like that. But like this team feels like one of the best coach teams that he's had, and it's just like really sweet for it to be kind of unfolding this way.
Wasn't it kind of funny last night's victory? And I guess we can dive into the win a little bit already. Like, it wasn't pretty, but as Matt Campbell always says, they stayed the course and they kind of broke the gates open in the fourth quarter. But, you know, I forget what he said after that Iowa game. You know, whoever plays harder for longer is going to win the football game. And that stood true even last night against not as talented of a Houston team. Like, Houston's defense, we said it on this podcast, Justin, that they were going to give us fits. It wasn't going to be a team that's going to roll over. Willie Fritz is a really good coach, but Iowa State stayed the course, even when offensively it looked really frustrating at times and really stagnant. But a couple of big plays in the fourth quarter broke this thing open and got a win. So it's kind of only fitting, I think, that this was his all-time win, his 57th win at Iowa State.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but I don't know if you listened to Williams talk about it after the game, and he was just like talking about how he was never concerned, and that's exactly how I felt. Like, I don't know about you. Were you worried at any point in this game?
No, felt exactly like the North Dakota game. I will say I was getting a little impatient with some of the red zone.
The offense was getting a little impatient, but yeah, just like the biggest takeaway for me on this game is like how unworried I was and how unworried I've been for the whole season, really, outside of that first quarter against Iowa. I mean, even though I kind of thought like we were going to lose that game, like I was never worried about the team at all. And I feel like how this season's been going as a whole, like that goes back to Campbell and goes back to how well this whole coaching staff as a group has been doing so far in this young season.
Last tidbit and note, then we'll dive all the way into the Houston game. Iowa State, again, 4-0, first time since the year 2000. Here's some stats on that 2000 team. One of my favorites, by the way. Very early in the McCarney era, was a good team. That team was never ranked in the top 25. They went 9-3. So it's obviously one of the only 9-win seasons in Iowa State history. That team finished 9-3 and didn't finish in the top 25 until the last week of the year. From my brief research, I think it was like Football Stats and Info, they didn't beat a ranked team. So 9 wins is good, but they didn't even beat a ranked team that year. They lost to, I believe it was Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Kansas State. So they also didn't see Oklahoma and Texas that year. So they kind of lucked out there. That was when we used to be young Iowa State fans. And any time we missed Texas, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech on the schedule, you knew you had a shot at a bowl game. But Ennis Haywood, my man, RIP, rushed for 1,300 yards that year. Sage Rosenfeld's obviously the captain, the quarterback, a fun team there in Iowa State history. Iowa State is ranked 16th in the AP poll going into this Saturday. Seems like we haven't seen Iowa State really that high in a long time. And I think we could get into it on our Play the Fight song, maybe preview show this week when we talk some top 25 stuff. I think Iowa State probably deserves to be higher, but they are the highest ranked Big 12 team going into week 6. So you got to take what you can get, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have said the same. That kind of feels like where they should be at with the inconsistencies that they've had and the schedule that they've played. But as the great Nick Saban would say, and probably as Matt Campbell would say as well, that's just rat poison, and I don't want to hear about it. So I have gotten to the point where like I pay way more close attention to like the betting odds than I do like the actual AP rankings. The AP rankings are kind of like a joke. If you want to know like where your team's at and where they stand, I feel like it's a better look to look where the odds are. And we moved up one. I don't know if you're going to touch on that. We came into the game. We were third in the conference for odds.
I was going to say, don't ask Justin. Don't ask UCF fans. Don't ask UCF fans that Vegas odds mean anything, because after Saturday, it means squat now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all rankings, but that touches on the AP note that it's really cool to see Iowa State getting some respect and seeing us be the top team in the conference, but we still don't have the top odds. And at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter if you're not going out and winning games.
Absolutely. Let's kind of put a bow on this Houston game. Iowa State wins 20-0. They led 3-0 at halftime. We said on this podcast they would get after Donovan Smith and Zion Chris pretty early and pretty often in that game. Held Houston to 72 total passing yards. I think they had 14 total passing yards in the middle of the third quarter at one point. Just some things to note. Carson Brown, I don't know if he's a walk-on or if he's on scholarship. The kid from Dowling, number 32, was the only receiver to catch a pass not named Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Interesting stat there. Justin, some quick things to note, personnel-wise, whatever you got to say. The line looked a little better. Travis started to play a lot more. He got in, I think, the second snap of the first offensive possession. But I thought the young linebackers looked pretty good. They were flying around the field. Bo Goodwin, Jacob Imig, Cooper Ebel. These are three kids from the state of Iowa and Northwest Iowa, kind of my territory. So I had to put a little flex of muscle there. It was good to see those guys in. And then Cale Brzezina, the true freshman linebacker, number 9, he's a stud, man. He's so good. I don't want to say you don't miss Caleb Bacon, because that's not even close to being true, but Brzezina is one of those young guys that you just feel really good about in the middle for your defense right now. Justin, what was the one thing that popped out to you offensively, defensively, anything from Saturday?
Yeah, I just continually be surprised by the depth of this team. Just like you were talking about the linebackers, we just got depth like all over. At first, I thought it was just like our receiving core too, but now you like touched on it with the linebackers. I'm sure we'll get to Jalen Jackson and the running backs, having Travis back at tackle. Just this, I don't remember an Iowa State team ever being this deep. I know they haven't really proved it yet against any like top tier teams, but man, they got depth at every position. Just a really cool thing to see with an Iowa State squad. And definitely the best aspect of yesterday was certainly the defense. I know we went out and got that field goal right away, and that comes back to the point where I was like saying I wasn't really worried. That was because of the defense. Like I honestly thought like 3 points was going to be enough to win that game. Not that I wanted us to win that way or thought that was going to happen, but like that's just like the level of trust that we didn't really see last year with the defense. There was a lot of errors that you don't necessarily see.
Yep.
And that came with injuries in the secondary and what have you. Like the secondary played really well yesterday. Seeing some of those guys like Freiler and Verdone come downhill and make tackles. I would not want to be tackled by those guys. They are hitting hard. Even if our linebackers were kind of struggling and we were missing them a little more than we are, those secondary guys really fill the shoes with the tackling.
I think that's a great point. Also, shout out to Jalen Jackson, Abu Usama, who both rushed for over 90+ yards. Awesome. You don't see that out of 2 running backs at Iowa State ever.
I was really cool there for that Abu touchdown.
Carson Hansen even got some carries or some good yardages in the first half. He was kind of the first back to really get a bunch of carries. So that was interesting to note too. But you said it, like the Malik Verdone forced fumble, I think was probably the biggest play of the game. If I'm wrong in saying they forced that fumble, and that was when they converted it into their first touchdown, correct? To make it 10-0. So they missed another opportunity in the red zone. I was getting a little antsy. I thought this team just needed to get 10 points. I kind of like you said you'd feel comfortable winning 3-0. I was like, can we at least be up double digits? Can we at least score a touchdown?
I don't know if you'd say comfortable winning 3-0, but the defense was playing well enough where I thought 3 might have been enough. It turned out it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, it in fact would have. But no, that biggest play of the game by Malik. Malik's an absolute stud. Jeremiah Cooper, those two are just thunder and lightning out in the secondary. They make big plays. Cooper gets a interception to basically put a seal on the game. So really awesome to see. We'll kind of dive into maybe some of the offense inefficiencies in our prediction segment, but let's get to the Baylor Bears before we get to this. So Baylor on the dock this week, 2-3 for the Bears as they fall at home in Waco to BYU. I believe it was 28-34. They lost by 6. The Dave Aranda tenure just continues to get uglier and uglier. Also, Dave, we're recording this on Sunday. Happy birthday, by the way. Glad to see you're not fired today. Baylor was outgained BYU in yardages, man. Like they outgained them in yards. They had a shot to win it. They were down 21-0 in the first quarter. And Sawyer Robertson had the ball in his hands in the final drive in the fourth quarter with a chance to win. So that just tells you how poorly that first quarter put them back, and they still had a chance to win. That's kind of what I think of this BYU team. But kudos to them, another 5-0 team. Us as Iowa State fans really can't say we've looked all that impressive in our undefeated stint yet. But they held BYU's running back to 19 carries on 51 yards. Like I said, they had a chance to win. They rushed for 63 yards as a team, and this is a group that likes its running backs. They have 4 different running backs who have rushed for over 100 yards this year. So the biggest takeaway for me in Baylor right now is, yes, I'm sure everybody pretty much saw the Colorado Hail Mary was probably the last time you saw them, unless you had a chance to watch this on Saturday. I think this team has zero identity for skill position guys right now. They like the running backs. They don't like them enough. Their best receiver, Monterey Baldwin, he's like 5th on the team in receiving yards. He had that great catch, that great diving catch against Colorado. He didn't even record a catch on Saturday. Not sure if he played. That brings that question to me, Justin. Did you have a chance to watch this game? Did you get any takeaways from Baylor? Because I'm sure you watched the Colorado game at least 2 weeks ago, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this did make the cut for one of my 13-hour games that I watched yesterday. But I honestly really only caught the first quarter and the fourth quarter, because at the end of the first quarter, I thought it was going to be over. I didn't turn it back on until Baylor really got back into it. And by that point, I just caught the last couple possessions and that last pick that Robinson had. But, I mean, yeah, there's not a whole, like you said, their offense, it just doesn't really seem like it's clicking for them, which obviously for Aranda's sake is not coming at a very good time. But he's always a coach that I've always respected in the Big 12, especially after like a season that they had in 21. But I really don't expect Iowa State's defense to have a lot of trouble keeping them in check this week.
I agree. And as far as like getting a read on where the fan base is at right now, if you watched the game yesterday and just saw the crowd, yeah, you saw the crowd, man. Like if you didn't see it, go on Twitter. It's all over Twitter. I think had Dave Aranda not been as nice of a guy as he is, he probably would have been fired last year. But I think there was still somewhat of a belief, kind of similar to Sam Pittman at Arkansas, if we want to make a comparison, like just good dudes who have tried to do things the right way. And they're like, you'll get another shot. You can have one more year and see what you can do with it. And Aranda going into this week just feels like it's the biggest game of his life right now. You lose on a Hail Mary to Colorado. You get blown out in the first quarter to BYU. If you guys want to listen to like more Baylor stuff, go listen to the guys at Locked On Baylor podcast. They did a decent job. And just some of the stats I heard was absolutely insane. Did you know that Baylor is 0-10 in their last 10 home games versus Power 4 opponents? They're abysmal at home. It's not good. I think over the last 2 to 3 years, I couldn't remember what the host said on the show, but Baylor's been outscored by 108 points in the first half. Justin, they come out of the gates and they just and it's like those stats seem alarming, but if you've watched Baylor football the last couple of years, yeah, it's kind of true. This is a guy.
Keep going. Sorry.
I was just saying, this is a guy who lost to Texas State at home last year. Now, Texas State ended up being okay, but like it's really spiraled out of control the last couple of years. And it started really 2 years ago on that night when the Texas State got its first Power 4 win in its history.
That's true, but I hadn't watched their first 2 games. I've just watched their 2 Big 12 games, the Colorado and the BYU game. It's not a bad football team.
Statistically, it's not.
Even for as bad as things have gone for them, they easily could have won both those games. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're a bad team and Iowa State's going to go out and roll them. If Iowa State doesn't show up if they bring the offensive inconsistencies again, like Baylor's shown they can stay in the game at least. They just haven't put it together. And I don't want to be the team that's going to be on the wrong side of them, maybe pulling off an upset and finally putting it together. So it's definitely not a team that you can just forget about, especially in this conference.
Well, I texted you last night. I'm very glad they decided to keep Dave around for this week.
I'm
I
the
don't know.
opposite.
You don't think so? Those interim coaches, they kind of, you never know when the first game of the interim coach steps in. You never really know what you're going to get.
That's true. But like you touched on a little bit ago, they like this coach. I mean, there's a reason he's still around because the players are at least still fighting until the end of the game. Like they're still at least competing for him. And he's still a good defensive coach. I mean, you never know what can happen, especially at a night game as a conference game. Like, I'd rather have a coach who's been there before.
I agree.
If I'm in the Baylor circumstance.
And it's weird too, right? You said it. You still see the fight in those guys that are still, otherwise they would have gotten beat 60-7, right? On Saturday. But at the same time, how do you not have your team ready to go after that loss versus Colorado? Like, how do you have the first quarter that you had? That just seems inexcusable. And it's exactly what you said, Justin. This team isn't bad, but this team hasn't beaten anybody. They beaten Air Force, who in my top, they're in the bottom probably 95 in college football right now. Not a good football team. It's not the Air Force of old. They beaten Tarleton State. They got shut out by Utah until Cam Rising got hurt. They blew the Hail Mary versus Colorado. And then you saw this game on Saturday against BYU. A P4's team steps on the field, and this team just either like doesn't come to play or they just somehow find a way to beat themselves. It's just been the name of the game for them. All right, players to watch. Let's start with quarterback Sawyer Robertson, the Mississippi State transfer from a couple of years ago. He was not the projected starter going into this year. If you guys paid attention to kind of the offseason stuff with this team, it was supposed to be DeQuan Finn, quarterback from Toledo. I believe he was MAC player of the year last year, that or Penny Boone, if I can't remember right, but struggled a little in the beginning a little bit. He played in the Utah game, didn't look good, got hurt, and Robertson's kind of taken the keys from there. He's looked good in some spots. I think at his best is when he can use his legs. He didn't use his legs as much in like the Air Force game, but I thought in that Colorado game, especially, used his legs well. Okay, passer. You watch that final drive against BYU, like most good quarterbacks aren't going to make that interception. They're not going to make that throw, but he's good enough to where, I think he's got dual threat abilities. He could maybe give Iowa State some sort of a threat. Wide receiver Ashton Hawkins, another guy to look out for. He had 870 yards last year. But like I said, this team has no identity in its skill position, guys. Hawkins has had 2 games this year with 0 catches and just didn't show up. I don't know if it's injury or what that looks like, but he might be a guy to look out for. Monterey Baldwin, another name to look out for if you're looking for that. Let's flip it to defense quick. Linebacker Matt Jones. He's been in this program for a long time, had 80 tackles last year. He's an okay guy in the middle. This team defensively doesn't have any stars on its side. I will highlight Steve Litton, the linebacker, edge rusher, whatever you want to call him. I think he's number 10, the Texas Tech transfer. He had 2 sacks in the Colorado game. I thought the edge pressure against Colorado was really good, but he didn't play in the BYU game. And the rumor was that he was suspended. This goes back to our conversation, Justin, about Dave Aranda and how he doesn't have his guys ready to go. Dave Aranda said that there were some guys that didn't play last week. He said some were due to injuries and some were off the field issues. There were like 10 to 12 guys there. And Big 12 doesn't make you file an injury report, and that's frustrating. But like,
beautiful sport we watch.
This one of your best pass rushers is getting suspended, who's been in the program for like 4 months. So that kind of just tells you where the tenure has been for Dave Aranda for this Baylor program. So those are about 4 or 5 names I would highlight and watch out for on Saturday. All right. Prediction time. We are kind of wrapping this thing up. Iowa State takes on Baylor Saturday night. Your 16th ranked Cyclones take on Baylor at, I believe, 6:30, Fox Sports 1. Am I wrong in saying that? Or is it a Fox?
I thought it was, okay, yeah, it is 6:30. I thought it was 6 o'clock, but yeah, it's 6:30 on Fox.
6:30 on Fox. So the Cyclones will be on national television once again. The line is at 13 when we are doing this Sunday night. I don't know what the over-under is at. Justin, do you know yet?
It is, as of right now on ESPN bet, it's 46.5.
46.5, spreads at 13. Iowa State. That's kind of where I would have put the line. Me and Max were talking last night, and I said it was going to be 15. I thought they were going to make it more than 2 scores. Are you
It's already
surprised?
moved a half point.
So 13.5.
No, it opened at 12.5. It's already
Opened
moved
to 12.5.
in our direction.
It's got to be like the Houston game, right? It opened at 12.5, 13, and what did it close at? 16?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Iowa State's got a chance to cover again. Justin, as we dive into this whiteout, this night game in Jack Trice Stadium on Saturday, what's the one thing you want to see from the Cyclones going against this Baylor team?
It's not necessarily related to Baylor at all, but kind of one of my concerns from the Houston game. I want to see more consistency from the offense and specifically the offensive line. I mean, They didn't have a bad game by any means, but I felt like a lot of and Rocco didn't have his best game either, but I felt like a lot of the bad passes and missed opportunities there kind of came from bad pockets. Not that they were like letting guys free and getting Rocco hit. I mean, he did stand in there a couple times, take some shots, but just the pockets as a whole were not developing very well. And it just made the offense feel really clunky and kind of really hurt the pass game because we were getting good pushes on the run game too, which is typically the other way for us. So that was kind of a concern for me. But I think our defense, like I said earlier, will play well enough where this shouldn't be an issue for the Cyclones.
Isn't that odd, right? Like, we were so accustomed, especially last year, like this, we usually have a pretty good pass protection, and then our push on the line and our run game over there, that was basically the opposite of what we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I mean, they're still flipping guys in there. I mean, Travis just started last week. They're still kind of mixing it around, so maybe they're still getting a feel for each other. And I'm sure, I don't know the X's and O's of offensive line play very much, but I'm sure developing a sense for the guys next to you and developing a pocket like that is something that's going to take time and take some chemistry.
I think this is a good task for Iowa State on Saturday, and I highlighted Steve Linton, and I don't know if he's going to be playing for Baylor on Saturday, but if he is, it's going to be a tough task because I think the edge rushers for Baylor are solid. I think they lack size and depth in the interior of the defensive line. I think Iowa State's going to have a chance to actually run the ball pretty well again. But we could have some sputtering of the offense in the passing game specifically if that pass protection doesn't get better, because I think this Baylor defense is good enough to get after you on the edge. The linebackers they're okay. It's kind of similar to a lot of what the Houston defense is, but I think the Houston defense is better in some spots. I think they're stronger in some spots.
I think Iowa State's also going through a thing where, I mean, that was the 4th game of the season. They're still developing their own identity on offense. We talked about the depth that Iowa State has. I mean, we're still playing 3 running backs, still trying to get the ball to a lot of different pass catchers. It doesn't really seem like they have a very go-to play or go-to route that they want to go to yet. So, I mean, that could play into the slow starts and inconsistency.
You sure that the fade ball to Jaden Higgins is not the go-to route right now?
I know you're going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. It's
I mean,
throw it to 9.
It is the easiest play in the game right now, is throwing it up to 9. And while I have really
he is
enjoyed
starting to separate himself a little bit.
Yes, that one-handed catch he had that got called back was disgusting. And he's becoming one of the best playmakers at the receiver spot in the Big 12. I don't think there's any question in one-on-one matchups. But that being said, I tweeted this out and I texted you guys last night. Iowa State right now does not have a third pass catcher, and it is alarming. If the ball's not going to Knoll or Higgins, and I know Rocco's comfortable with them, they've been doing this for now a year and a half. I get that, but we know Ben Bramer was banged up in the fall camp. That's maybe set him back a little bit. We saw some flashes in the Arkansas State game. Daniel Jackson, of course, tears his ACL. I look at Isaiah Alston, Eli Green, 2 transfers that come in that were supposed to be big-time guys, and there is not a third receiver on this team at all. I'm sorry. I don't want to be harsh. I know I want to celebrate the fact that this team has had a lot of success in other spots, but there's not a third guy, and I don't know who you go to right now.
Yeah, I think those guys are still super talented, but clearly they're still trying to figure out what their role is with the offense. And we're playing with a first-year offensive coordinator too. So, I mean, Mauser's trying to figure out the rhythm that he wants to get with the offense. So I'm glad the schedule's looking a lot lighter at the beginning of the year than we were thinking, because if we keep having like these sputtering offenses, it's going to bite us in the ass eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And one more shout out. I mean, I think
you're good.
A third pass catcher option that we were lacking yesterday, fullback Steve O'Klotz. I mean, they touched on it on the broadcast. Me and my buddy were watching. I got a good laugh about that. We're like, clearly, no Steve-O today. Offense can't get rolling. He was the guy that got it rolling for us against Iowa.
I will say, he's had probably, I think, 2 or 3 catches out of the flat where he fakes that he's blocked and then he slips it away.
It's a good formation.
Justin, did you know that Dave Aranda is 2-13 in his last 15 games? I heard that on our podcast.
Yikes.
Bye week coming up next week for the Bears after the Iowa State game. Big time night game. Let's get into the prediction segment. As always, brought to you by our partners over at No Rivals. Again, comment below who you think is going to win, Baylor or Iowa State. Give us a score prediction. If you nail them both in the head, you will get a hat at No Rivals using the code PTFS, and you got to make sure you're subscribed to us. Justin, does Dave Aranda have a job next Sunday morning? And give us a score prediction for this game on Saturday.
I don't speak on the job security of another grown man.
But hey, we're fans. We're fans. We can say this. We're not college football. We're not like national reporters. We can say this.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like they're going to go another direction, especially if Iowa State covers like I think they're going to do. Like I said, I really don't think our defense is going to have too much problems with Baylor if we take care of the ball. I'm thinking 10-27. I hope we can get to 27 after watching last week. I'm a little less confident, but being back at home,
hammer the under.
Slow, no, that okay, yes,
that's the under.
That would be under. Yeah. I just don't really see it getting that out of hand unless our offense catches fire. I don't see their offense having a ton of success unless, like you said, they start running the quarterback a little more, which they probably should, because that was kind of the only weakness that we showed against Houston. And it has been a weakness of Heacock's defenses as a whole, I kind of feel like, as quarterback run. So unless they can start to find some magic there, I really don't see this being that exciting of a game. And hopefully Iowa State just takes care of business.
Sawyer Robertson's going to need to play his best game in probably his young career at Baylor for them to have a chance on Saturday. I do see him coming out and playing pretty well. I think this night game is going to get Iowa State pretty excited, but I think it's also going to jack up Baylor a little bit. Like, they know they're big underdogs. They got a lot to prove. They got to fight for their coach whose job's on the line. I think they come out and punch Iowa State in the mouth just a little bit. We remember, what was that, Brock Purdy's junior year, the 2020 team, that Baylor team that had like 2 wins and was up on Iowa State. Brock threw a bunch of interceptions, gave them a run.
That game?
Yeah. So could somewhat see Baylor coming into this one and giving Iowa State a fight when Iowa State should probably dominate from the beginning. That being said, I like Iowa State 31-21 in this. I really do think that we were very fortunate in playing a horrendous passing attack in Houston last week. And I think that's just going to set this defense back just a little bit, because I think iron sharpens iron. I think Iowa State just hasn't seen a good quarterback all year in a mobile one who can also throw. This is probably the best quarterback they've seen in game 5. I think there's better quarterbacks down the line, but this is the best one we've seen so far. I know I feel like we say that every week, just kind of tells you the quarterbacks Iowa State's seen all year, but
we'll say the same thing next week.
I think he gives them some problems. I think the pass rush is going to be giving Iowa State some fits early in the first half. They'll make the adjustments. They'll be able to run the football. And I want to see somebody step up at receiver that's not named Jaden Higgins or Jalen Knoll. Give me Iowa State 31-21 Saturday night, Jack's Rice Stadium. I hope, Justin, I hope both of us are there. I know you're going.
You make the trip over?
I'm doing my best. I'm looking at it. I know a lot of you fans we're all getting excited. You guys are taking my ticket prices, and the prices are going up right now, which is a good thing. I really hope we do. In all honesty, I hope Iowa State does sell out Saturday night, because this team deserves it. I mean, to get this far, 4-0, ranked 16th, big opportunity to probably crack the top 15 if you win this one. It is a big opportunity for Iowa State on Saturday. 31-21 from myself. Justin, you said 27-10. Any closing thoughts before we look on to Baylor?
Not really. Just touch back. I mean, if we're gonna close with anything, I just want to touch with touching on the coaching staff again with the consistency that Heathcock and Campbell have brought to this program. I mean, it just can't be understated. I was watching the video, the thank you video to Matt Campbell, and they had Dan on there as the first one. It's like,
yep,
Iowa State's come a long way, and I mean, I look forward to the rest of this season. But it just for one Sunday, I just want to give those guys their flowers and thank them for everything that they've done.
Yeah, 100%. And also shout out Coach Mack. He's the best, man. This team, this program, this school wouldn't be where it is without Coach Mack. So
Absolutely.
Always got to shout out Dan McCarney when you can. All right. We will touch base in a week, Justin. Hope the Cyclones are 5-0 and we look on to West Virginia. Little sneak peek for our listeners. Justin and I are heading out to Morgantown. We're really excited for it.
Do a live pod from Morgantown. Morgantown.
Oh, let us know in the comments. We might have to make something happen. All right. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like the video, comment below for your score prediction. And as always, subscribe to us to hear the Play the Fight Song college football show. My name is Jake. That is Justin. We will see you guys next week. Let's celebrate another victory Saturday. And as always, you know what it is. I got to say it. Let's go Cyclones.